Ken Whiting here with another, well, paddling tip, I guess you could call this thing. I'm going to be looking at some gear that I think, well, you don't gotta have it, but you should definitely consider it. I just did a 7-day river trip down the Des Moines River in Quebec. I did it with a group of friends, and it's a classic, world-renowned canoe tripping river. We did it in a raft and 5 inflatable kayaks. We took the raft so that we could bring some luxurious items like this camp table I've got right here, but we also took the raft and the inflatable kayak so that we could run more of the whitewater. Didn't have to worry about swamping like you do with a canoe. Anyway, I'm gonna run down some of the gear that was really, really nice to have on that trip. That is applicable not to a luxurious trip where you have a ton of space, but to any type of river trip. And we're gonna start with a pretty essential piece of safety gear when you're in the backcountry doing any kind of trip where you're not sure if you're gonna have cell phone access. In this case, there was absolutely no cell access. We knew there wouldn't be, is a communication device. Now, the one I used and I've been using for the past few years is the Zoleo. It goes for around 200 bucks, and you have to pay 20 bucks a month for the satellite network. And that's because it's actually, it's a communication device. So you can have two-way messaging. I can message people back at home and they can message me. It has an SOS. Thankfully, we didn't have to use any of those features. I didn't want to communicate. I didn't want to be messaging with the outside world. But what we did use this for on a daily basis was pulling up the weather report for the next day. You know, sometimes it's nice not to know. It's part of the adventure, not knowing what the next day holds. But for planning purposes, for dressing, for knowing whether or not to put a fly on your tent or just sleep and stare at the stars and not have to worry about waking up in the middle of the night rudely as rain pouring into your tent. It was really nice to be able to check the weather. The next thing worth mentioning is this bag of random bits and pieces. This is a good portion of the repair kit that we brought down. You need to bring a repair kit. Now, we had to bring some things that were specific to the raft. I brought a raft repair kit that doesn't include the raft repair kit or the inflatable kayak repair kit. We actually had two little separate kits for those two things, but this is kind of my standard repair kit for any overnight paddling trip. I just got a bunch of rope here. You know, who knows how it can come in useful. This stuff here, tear aid. This stuff is really great at repairing vinyl. I got a little patches, but also a roll of this stuff. It's great for repairing tents, repairing dry bags. We're repairing, temporary repair, but it does a remarkably good job. You can even use it to repair inflatable kayaks if the hole's not in a bad spot. For a quick fix, it's strong. I've got a sleeping bag, a Thermarest repair kit here, so no one has to sleep on a flat sleeping pad. There's some Aquaseal seam grip in here, and duct tape, and zip ties, a whole bunch of zip ties, and I got a knife in here, an all-purpose knife. So that is a kit that goes with me everywhere because you never know what you're going to need to repair, and it's amazing what you can do with some tear aid, zip ties, rope, duct tape, and some Aquaseal. Next up, we've got this sucker right here. This is the Platypus Gravity Works water filter. It's a dromedary bag, some people call it. And the way it works is you fill up the dirty water. You don't have this connected. You take this to the river and just scoop water to fill this thing up, hang it up on a tree, connect the lower section, boom, just like that. And then the water goes through the filter, the primary filter, then it goes through the carbon filter, which gets rid of the taste and odor of the water if it's not nice, not clean tasting. And there you go. Gravity does the work. No pumping whatsoever. A buddy gave this to me about 3 years ago. Said, you need to move on from pumping and start letting gravity do the work. I've always been a pro gravity guy. I love gravity sports. I love going downhill. I've never liked going uphill. Makes sense. I don't like pumping. I like gravity do the work. It takes like 10, 15 minutes to do 15 minutes probably to do the full 4 liters, and it's really easy to clean in the field if you need to. You just back flush it. This thing costs around 150 bucks and is well worth it. You will never go back to pumping. Next, we got the Brew Trek Base Camp French Press. Coffee is one of the most important parts of any multi-day paddling trip, in my opinion. And so you need to have a good coffee delivery mechanism, especially for a group. And this thing is awesome for a group. It's 48 ounces. It's a French press, so you can make enough coffee for, really you can make about, we were making about 4 cups of coffee for each of these. That's why we brought 2 of these on the trip. And then for the group of 7, no one was sitting around waiting for coffee. We always had coffee on the go, and we're a bunch of coffee lovers. So what I love about this French press is it's insulated, for one thing. And so if you have the people that sleep in and you know, they're still going to get a hot cup of coffee after. You don't need to make fresh coffee. The plunger system just works really well. I've had a couple of super lightweight French presses that I've used when camping that they do the job, but inevitably there's coffee grounds in the coffee. And that's drinking a cup of coffee and, you know, chewing on coffee grounds kind of sucks. This one did a really, really good job of keeping the coffee grounds out. It's a pretty heavy duty. It's not the lightest French press you're going to find, that's for sure, but great job for a group. 70 bucks for the Brew Trek Base Camp coffee filter. Now, just a quick break from the video to let you know about the free online paddling safety course from the ACA. They came out with it about 2 years ago, and so you may know about it. If you don't, you should know about it because it's free, it doesn't take too long, and it can make a huge difference. They just released 3 new modules: a kayak fishing module, a nautical rules of the road, so if you're paddling on bodies of water that have powerboat traffic, and a paddling rescues module. They only take a few minutes each. They're definitely worth doing. If you're an experienced paddler, as a refresher course, if you're new to paddling, they're pretty much a must-do. It's must-have knowledge. And so take a few minutes. I'll leave a link in the description box down below and take the paddling safety courses from the ACA. So next up, first aid kit. Kind of goes without saying. So this is what we did for our group. Everyone had their own first aid kit. That was the rule. Bring your own first aid kit, small one. Almost everyone had these adventure medical kits. I've got the Watertight Medical Kit 9. It's just got a great assortment of things that I expect to need. It doesn't have big items like SAM splint, and so we allocated one person on the trip to bring some big items that not everybody needed to bring. We just needed one of them. So everybody just managed their own first aid though. Now, fires. It's spring, and fires are a big part of the camping experience. Well, all year long it is, unless it's really hot. This saw here, this is the first time I used this. This is a Zubat, and this is a preferred saw by arborists because it cuts wood real quick. It does an amazing job. Not much more I can say about this thing. It's around 100 bucks or so. And man, you know, a good saw is, when you're camping and cutting wood, you can spend a lot of energy and time chopping up wood. And so having a good saw is worth its weight in gold. So definitely recommend that one. This is another one that really shouldn't need talking about, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. Bug repellent, bug dope. It's not this stuff in particular. What I really want to talk about is what we did to deal with the bugs. It's May, late May, and the bugs are in full force in Quebec. And so we needed defense from black flies and mosquitoes, and lots of them, for 7 days. And so everybody brought a full-size can of bug dope, and we went through it all. I brought this is the first time I tried this Great Outdoors bug cream. It goes on like sun cream, and at first I was like, eesh, it's so much easier to use those spray bottles, but actually in the end I really liked it because you can control where you're putting it a bit more. But we also This is more of a luxury item here. Oh, because it's big and it weighs a lot. This is a bug tent. This thing is like 30 pounds or something. We could bring it because we had the raft, but it's 14 by 14 feet. It provided such a great area to cook, to hang out. We spent so much of our time in there in the evenings when the bugs were the worst. If you can bring a bug tent in this time of year, definitely worth doing. It's not for every trip, but it was awesome on this trip. Now, this thing here and the other pieces inside here, this is a barrel organizer. We used barrels to, like a lot of canoers do and rafters do, to bring all our food in particular downriver. I was introduced to recreational barrel works, barrel organizers. And for me, the barrels, food in barrels is always, it becomes this bottomless pit. I have food well organized at the beginning of the trip, but inevitably you're digging in, things fall down, and within 12 hours of launching, your barrels become this bottomless pit. Anytime you need something, you have to pull everything out and to find that one thing. And inevitably, the thing that you want is going to be at the bottom, and it just becomes more and more disorganized. It's really hard to keep it organized. And these things are a game changer. This one here is actually insulated. So we had some pre-cooked frozen food that we put in here, and it kept it, even though it was a hot trip, did a great job of keeping it frozen for as long as we needed. But then there's uninsulated versions here, and they're perfectly sized to fit straight into the barrel. You can fit a bunch of them, and so that you can organize your food how you want to organize it. When you want to get at something, you're just lifting out these organizers from the barrel, and then finding the organizer you want, pulling out what you need, and then putting the couple of organizers back in. Sounds simple, and it is a simple concept, but oh my gosh, was it ever helpful. There's also, I didn't use these on this trip, but these are barrels, being shaped like this. These organizers are cylindrical, so there's still space on the outside, and that's why they came out with these side organizers to go on the outside for smaller items that fit there. Now, I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy these barrel organizers, and so I didn't even bother bringing these. My next trip, I'm definitely going to be bringing all the little toys from, all little organizers from Recreational Barrel Works. So, great little system. Next up is this sucker here. A collapsible fishing pole. The Des Moines is a renowned fishing river and lake. Lots of walleye, lots of bass. We were there for walleye, which we didn't do a very good job of catching. But nevertheless, we all brought fishing poles. When you're on a whitewater trip, fishing poles are so easy to destroy or to lose. This is from Bass Pro. It's a simple collapsible fishing rod. The cool thing about this thing is it has a little, rod protector for the tips, so you don't bust the tips off right away. And then all you do is it just telescopes out. And then when you're done fishing, you just pack it back in. I just reel it back up, and now I'm really making a mess here because I wasn't paying attention to what I'm doing. But the telescoping rod was great. We're coming up to whitewater. I could just compact the rod, put it in a safe spot, and put the rod protector on it, and boom, ready to do some whitewater. Last but not least, this sucker here is not just a bag to carry all these other pieces of gear. This is the big basin bag water container from NRS. Now, I almost left this thing at home, and I'm glad I didn't, because for dishwashing, this thing is awesome. You can make hot water at your kitchen. You make hot water, dump it in here, add some cold water, get it the right temperature, and basically this just becomes your big dishwashing basin. So much nicer than going down to the edge of the water, getting eaten by bugs there, and trying to wash your dishes in cold water, bent over awkwardly. You could just stand here. it was just really comfortable. I almost left it because I was responsible for all the menu planning and for cooking most of the food. And so I knew I wasn't gonna have to wash dishes, so I didn't really care where they had to wash them. But in the end, I brought it, and the rest of the crew were extremely thankful that we had this. This is something that, a simple thing that they mentioned made one of the biggest differences on the trip. Well, that's it. I mean, a lot more gear I could talk about, but this is the gear that really stands out as being a difference maker, something that we actually talked about on the trip. There was like, hey, that stuff, that worked out really well. I've got a lot more trips coming up, multi-day trips coming up, including one in a couple of weeks from now. And I'm gonna be testing out a lot of other gear this year: tents, sleeping pads, hammocks, it goes on, cooking stoves, etc., etc. And so after all the trips, I am going to do the same thing. I'm gonna let you know, hey, this is some of the gear that I tested, this is what I used, and this is the stuff that really stood out. So hopefully you'll find that useful. Hopefully you found this video useful, and some of this gear is going to be on your next trip to the outdoor store list. Otherwise, stay tuned for more paddling tips, gear reviews, and paddling adventures, because there's lots more of all of them coming. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't, and subscribe to Paddle TV if you haven't already too. And we'll see you soon.